right, so in this video, we're going to go over the answer for the cash register app. So we're going to have the same folder structure as we've had in the prior lessons with the CSS file and a CSS folder, JavaScript and a JavaScript folder, and this index HTML. I'm going to skip some of this stuff here since it's not super complicated. But the basic idea for the HTML is I'm going to set up a div that's going to hold the cash register. I'm going to set up another div that's going to just act as like a container. I'll call it view. Then I'm going to have cash register. I'm going to have a table. The table is going to have a body in it. We're going to call that items. That way we can append individual items to that body. And then in a footer, tfoot, we're going to have the total. So the total is going to be here. And as the user enters different items, we're going to update this number here, this HTML, in the table footer. So it's going to be a table footer. This is a table row that's going to hold these table columns here. And we're going to append everything to this table body. And then finally, at the bottom here, we're going to have a form. The form will allow the user to input information. So go to the actual web page. This is what it's going to look like. I haven't hooked up the JQuery yet, but I'll show you how to do that in a second. And then the CSS, I won't go through this in too much detail, but you can see here what this looks like, and you can also copy the file from the website. This is just some basic formatting just to make it look a little cleaner and prettier. So let me get rid of this file for now. I'm going to make this one a little smaller because we're mostly going to be working in here. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to create a variable called total and set it equal to 0. This is going to keep track of the total value of the cash register. And then we're going to have a function called add value. And that function is going to run when this form new amount is clicked, or actually submitted to use a form. So the first thing we're going to do is just we're going to test, make sure that the form and the button is actually working. So we're going to go here, click refresh, enter number, it should say alert high. All right, so that's all good. The first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to do an event at default. And this is going to keep the page from reloading when you click the submit button. That way you can actually change the HTML. And if you don't know, if you want to learn more information about that, just go ahead and Google it. It also looks like this is going to get rid of. It's being deprecated. So eventually I have to come up with a new way of writing this. But for now, this still works. So then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to keep track of the user entry. So we're going to say user entry, and we're going to make it equal to the amount, which is this input in the form here. And this is going to come in as a string, so we want to parse it as a float. Go ahead and make this a little smaller so we can have better stuff to work with here. All right, so this is going to get user entry. It's going to parse it as a float. Then what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to put it in a dollar format. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new variable to store the dollar format. And we're going to take the user entry, which is now in a float format. And we're going to use the toFixed 2. This will make it 2 decimals. And then the other thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to add a dollar sign to it so it looks like it's actual money. So this is just going to concatenate a dollar to X. All right. And then what we're going to want to do is whenever the user does enter something, we're going to concatenate it to the actual items. And the items, again, if you remember here, it's hard to see with this formatting, but the items is this body tag. So we're going to add rows to this body tag. And since that's impossible to see, we're just going to make that one screen. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is just use our JQuery. And we're going to attach the items. We're going to append to it. And here again, remember we used a grave accent, not a single quotation. And then we're going to append the table. So this should append a row and a column with value from that we get from here, which is what the user puts in. And then we're going to make the total plus user entry. Actually, we're going to make it equal to total plus X. And we have to do this before that because otherwise it's just going to have a dollar sign. And then the total we're going to make equal to total. We're going to make this, we're going to concatenate this here. Dollar sign attached to it. And then we're going to reset the input. 0. So this should start off by when the user clicks the submit button with a value in it, it's going to run this function. This function is going to prevent the page from automatically reloading. It's going to take the user entry, which is going to be this amount of value here. It's going to parse it from a string to a float and store in the user variable and the variable user entry. Then we're going to take the user entry variable and we're going to make it only 2 decimals. So it's like an actual currency. We're going to declare the variable X and store this result in the variable X. And we're going to take the total and we're going to take total and make it equal to total plus this X variable, which these are just entered. And we're going to take this and we're going to add the dollar sign to it there. And then do the same thing, update the total and reset the value. And then this is adding the column to the table here. So just save both these and hopefully this works. Looks like there's an extra bracket there. So we'll have to see what that is. But other than that, it looks like it works. Yeah, it looks like I just have an extra bracket. All right, so let's try that again. And now that's adding it as a string on the total, so that's not working. All right, so let's see, it's probably this. So let's see if we get rid of this. That works. No, looks like it's still concatenating it as if it was a string. So let's see what we need to do here. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to create a new function. It's going to do the conversion for us. So we call it dollar format because we're having some issues with the data type here. So this is just going to do the converting for us. So it's going to be equal to all right, so we're just trying to fix this error so that's not adding it in as a string. So hopefully this works there. Always go back and forth between camel case here, where it's a word with a capital letter, versus this underscore case. So to make this consistent, I'm just going to make that camel case there. Try this out. So again, this is just making sure that we're not using strings when we should be using numbers. So what this function is doing is it's taking in a number, or it's taking in this user entry. So the user entry is going to be a float. It's going to run through this function $format. So $format is going to take in this variable. So then this variable is going to come in. We're going to call it num in this function. We're going to make sure that it is only 2 decimals first. So we're going to make this 2 decimals. We're going to create a local variable called x here. And it's going to be different from this variable. Since these are both local variables within the function, we can use the same variable name. So we're going to declare this new variable x. We're going to add the $sign to it, and then we're going to return it. So returning it means that it's just sending it back to wherever it came from. So here, we're calling the function $format, or passing along user entry. That's going into here, and we're returning x. So this variable that we're declaring here, x, we're also assigning it the value of what's being returned from this function. So it's a little confusing, I know, but it's a good way to pass information through functions. So let's try this out first to make sure it's actually working. Okay, yeah, looks like it is now working. Let's see if we add too many. Okay, yeah. All right, so this is now working. So just to explain this one more time, since it's a little confusing. Before we were getting an error because we were summing up strings instead of actual numbers. So we kind of did this extra function here to avoid that issue. So this function basically takes in a number, it makes it 2 decimals, and it returns this formatted string here with the $sign in front of it. So we're using that here so that when the total comes up, it appears to be $1 in the dollar currency format, as well as here in the table rows. So that's the basic idea. And don't forget, this is a grave accent, not a single quotation. Common mistake that happens a lot. But hopefully this wasn't too hard, and we'll see you in the next video.